Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Thursday night, so it is time once again for the Tank Show, where we spend some time acquiring new knowledge. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate my buddy, pal, and co host, Chattanooga Ed, for being here as well.
It's awesome to
Now,
be here.
we do have a special guest tonight. Grant from the Garden of Eder will be with us. He was actually just here, and then his power went back out. He sent me a message. Said give him a couple minutes to get back on. So we will have him while we are getting warmed up, and John and Lisa are talking over there. Let me go up here. I want to say a couple of thank yous real quick. Get to this screen. Always got to find the right screen. There we go. Before we even got started, we got Rico Stan with the $5 super chat. Says, I got the new member icon. I'm somebody now.
Oh, Rico, I want to see what he has.
I hope that you enjoy the new icons. That's one thing I did want to mention for any of the members that were not aware, because I know YouTube does not always like to share the posts out to you all. I did update the membership badges, and I also kind of refreshed the emojis for the chat. So we got a couple new ones, new emojis, and then just kind of made some of the old ones a little bit prettier for you all. But all of the badges are brand new. The only one that I didn't put a preview for on the community link is the 4-year badge. We're going to keep that one a secret for a while, because I think we still got a year and a couple of months till anybody gets there. So that one's going to stay in the secrets closet. But Rico Stan, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate the love and support. Carol Cox, using her membership milestone super chat, says, looking forward to this stream. Hello to all. Hello to you, Carol. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for being a member. Maria Z with that $5 super sticker with that little party pair. There we go. Words are hard. That little party pair. I appreciate you, Maria. And as always, good to see you. Thank you for the love and support. Killer Kitty 08 using that membership milestone super chat says, Thursday is my happy place. Hashtag fish fam. It's my happy place too. Well, I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for being a member, and thanks for hanging out with us on Thursdays. Garden of Eder, using his membership milestone super chat, says, really bad storm just took out the internet, but we do have him back. So Grant, a huge thank you for being a member, and thank you for being on the stream tonight.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me. Really excited about this one.
So I guess before we do a dive into the questions about shrimp and talk about shrimp keeping, for anybody that's not aware, do you just want to kind of tell people who you are and what you do and where they can find you at?
So I myself, I'm just half of the operation of the Garden of Eder. The other half is my fiance, Shelby, or TGOE, Shelby K. She's in chatter, prowling around tonight. I don't know if she'll jump in or whatever, but the two of us, we have 300 plus tanks in the house, 40 plus ponds outside, over 130 different varieties of dwarf freshwater shrimp. But Shelby also has quite a few fish tanks going on now. And then we also do a bunch of plants and aquascaping. We turned our swimming pool into a koi and turtle pond. We've got diamondback terrapins, 7 of them right now. That's all we can have. They just made a law passing no new ownership on them. So until we move, that's all we'll have for now. But yeah, I've been keeping and breeding shrimp for about 9 years now. And yeah.
Very cool. Real quick, I want to say a huge thank you to KG Tropicals, John and Lisa, who just threw everybody our way. We appreciate you all being here. In case you missed any of that, we are hanging out with Grant from the Garden of Eder, and we are talking shrimp keeping. So thank you. Appreciate y'all being here. Party time is on.
It looked like you jumped into Grant's screen.
I just popped right in there, you know.
Poor Grant.
So we will definitely get to highlighted questions and comments, and of course the super chats and stickers. We appreciate all of you all. But let's dive right into talking about shrimp some first before we get too deep into the chat, which is very easy to do. So if I'm a new aquarist, or maybe I've been in the hobby for a while, but I've never kept shrimp, what are some reasons I might want to add shrimp to my tank or start a shrimp tank on its own?
So starting a shrimp tank on its own would be a good idea because they're really low maintenance. Like I mentioned, we have 300 tanks in the house, and I feel like we do quite a bit of traveling. We go to all the shows we possibly can, and everybody's always like, "Oh, who takes care of the tanks while you're gone?" And well, the shrimp are such low bioload, such low maintenance that I feel like I could leave for like 2 months and have everything on timers, not necessarily automatic water changes or automatic feeders or anything, like just the lights, so that way the biofilm is growing. I'm certainly sure that some of the weaker shrimp would get eaten off and picked off when they're molting, but for every shrimp that gets eaten and taken out, I'll probably have 20 to 30 babies at least. So, but like after 2 months, I'm kind of asking for trouble. But they're so easy that you don't really have to deal with too much disease as long as you get them from a good source. So it's like you don't really have to quarantine them if you're just setting up a tank for them all by themselves or whatever. But they're just super simple, and they're not something you have to feed every day. You can feed them every other day. You can feed them, once a week if you wanted to. There's certain ways to get around it, but there are a lot of color and not a lot of care, so it gets a lot of
And
people
they
interested.
oh yeah, absolutely. And they seem to breed fairly easily, in my experience. So that's always a plus.
Eh, One of
Um,
the probably the benefits to having them, if you're already in the hobby, is the culls could be free fish food feeders. And then if you want to sell off some of the nice ones, it is kind of one of the easiest way to kind of pay for parts of your hobby. So
Absolutely. One of the other things that I enjoy about them is I put cherry shrimp in most of my tanks. I like having that extra cleanup crew aspect, that extra scavenger in the tank, just to go around and eat little things that are left over.
yeah.
So you've got me sold. I'm going to get some shrimp.
Yeah.
What do I need to know before I just go down to the fish store or go online and order some shrimp?
So I like to stick with the bare necessities. All you need is an open tank. 10 gallons is what I recommend. Anything smaller, it's possible. These are little tiny creatures, but if you're looking for a nice breeding colony that isn't going to be stunted on growth, 10 gallons is, what I'd recommend the smallest for a breeding colony. Now, if you just wanted to keep them and you had a 2.5 gallon tank, that's fine. Just make sure it's properly cycled before you add the shrimp in. But 10 gallons, the bigger the better. It's easier to keep water parameters consistent. So the larger water volumes, less drop with evaporation and stuff like that. Getting a lid is going to be great because it'll kind of combat that evaporation and the TDS spikes. But it's not absolutely needed. You can top off with RO water. If you top off with tap water, you're just kind of stacking minerals on top of minerals, because when water evaporates, the H2O2 evaporates, but all the mineral content gets left behind. Then you want to make sure that the filter is not sucking up the babies. So you can get a really cheap sponge filter or box filter, something like that. They work great. If you already have a filter, you can get a little stainless steel guard, goes on the intake, and it'll prevent the babies from getting sucked up. There's also very, very porous, but tiny, micron filters, so that way it won't suck up the babies as well. And then all you really need is clean water. I recommend using black substrate for most of the shrimp. They're not cuttlefish that are chameleons where they can change color, really well, but they do have some type of camouflage reflex. And what happens if you have bare bottom, they kind of lose all their color. They're really stressed out. They think that they're sticking out like a sore thumb, and easy prey, easy pickings for fish, even if they're not in the tanks. So you want to have kind of a deep, dark substrate. There are shrimp like the painted red cherries and green emeralds and blue diamonds that kind of look better. All shrimp will lose a little bit color going that route, especially yellow and greens. They're the worst. But substrate's not needed. And this is for Neocaridina shrimp. All you need is take a little bit of tap water, use some prime to take out the chlorine, and then you want to get fancy, put some decorations. Any surface area that you're going to be able to fill up the tank with is going to be room for biofilms to grow. And the biofilm is going to be like 60% of what the shrimp should be eating on. And then live plants, moss is going to be like the creme de la creme, excellent source for little tiny microorganisms to live and hang out and breed in. The shrimp are going to eat off of those, and the little babies are also going to be able to be born in the moss and grow up and find a good source of nutrients and food. And then if we want to go Caridina, you have to use RO water. You have to use GH only minerals because the KH will bring the pH up. And then you have to use RO water with the aqua soil. You can use pea moss or something else like that, but it's going to really tannin up the water. And I don't know anybody that actually breeds Caridina using the peat moss method. So the aqua soil is a volcanic ash that's rolled up and then basically lasts like 3 to 4 years if you get a good brand, and it drops the pH down to 5.5 to 6.2. That's the optimal range for Caridina. But besides the water and the substrate, the Caridina and the Neocaradinas are the exact same care. So if you've got the RO unit, the Caridina are a lot more fun because you can crossbreed them and get a lot of fun colors and patterns, where if you crossbreed the Neos, they're a lot easier to take care of and breed. But when you cross them, 99% of the time, you're going to end up with wilds, which are clear, maybe, black or brown or blue in coloration if you're lucky. But it takes like a $4 shrimp and turns it into a $50 or 50-cent shrimp. And the Caridina, you can go from a $4 to a $50. So it's the complete opposite spectrum.
Absolutely. That's a very good point I wanted to touch on for the Neocaradinas, is that you definitely want to stay color specific unless you don't mind some of those mutts, some of those wild types coming out. But if you want a really pretty line, or you want to try and, make a line even prettier, definitely stay to one specific color.
Yeah.
So back to that 10-gallon you talked about, new shrimp keeper. I've got that 10-gallon set up. I've got the filtration. It's cycled. It's ready to go. What kind of stocking levels do you recommend kind of to start with, and also as a maximum for what I don't want to go over in that tank?
So we recommend bare minimum of 1 to 2 shrimp per gallon to start off with. You want at least 9, because then that gives you like a 97% chance of having a male and a female. But if you have a 10-gallon tank, you want to start out with 20. That's going to be a great, starter colony to get you going. But the more, the better. I wouldn't necessarily go and get 100 to start off with, but if I was personally wanting to start a 10-gallon tank with a good breeding colony, I'd probably do like 5 really nice males and then 45 females. Or just get a group 50 juveniles, and then I'll cull out the ugly males as they start to grow up.
Absolutely. That's good advice. Well, I think that I tried to cover all of the basic questions for somebody that may not be too familiar with shrimp, but do you have anything else specifically that you want to share before we start taking maybe some questions from the chat here?
A lot of the myths are the no water change thing, and that's going to be all right for certain tanks. It depends, how planted you have them, and the amount of bacteria load that's beneficial growing underneath the substrate and stuff like that. And the filtration, the aeration, and whatnot. But it's just asking for troubles, and not a lot of breeders have a lot of success, especially breeding high numbers, is going to do, bare minimum water changes. I'm doing 50% water changes every other week. And as long as you take the chlorine out of the water, the shrimp love clean water. So they just want clean water with a big food source, and then, room to grow.
Very
How
cool.
long do you think a tank should season before you put your shrimps in there?
30 days.
30 days?
All my tanks cycle for 30 days, and then after that, I throw them in. And I don't really like dirty tanks. I don't like the algae. The kind of like the number one algae that shrimp breeders will go for is the Kleb. It's not really like a hair algae, but it's kind of like wavy, grows. It's kind of really soft cotton like, but it's just more organics in the water column, and I just don't think it's good for the shrimp if you have a better source of food for them than the club, because I think they're just competing with the club, and the club is growing on the other organics in the water. So if you can just get a good source of biofilm growing, that I prefer that, or the brown walls on the side of the tanks. I prefer a nice brown wall or green wall rather than the algae growing all over the place.
Good to know.
Awesome.
Any other questions, Ed, before I dive into the chat here?
Yeah, I got one more. How do you add calcium, and how do you do it to their diets? Like, is that important?
So as long as you have a good water source and you're changing the water, that's going to be their main source of calcium, but then also a good rotation of food. So we use shrimp envy foods and then a couple other like heavy mineral foods as well. And then snowflake, it's soybean hulls. It's a great like vacation feeder. It really doesn't pollute up the water. When we go to the Triple Crown, I'll probably throw in a little extra snowflake into every single tank since we'll be gone for so long. And it really does a good job at growing biofilm. So sometimes the shrimp might not even be eating the snowflake right away. They'll come back to it though as the biofilm starts to grow on it and softens it up.
Very cool. Now, will you be bringing some shrimp to the Triple Crown?
Yeah, we'll have shrimp and a bunch of plants, some shrimp food, and probably a couple bags of fish also.
Very cool. Now, if somebody can't get to the Triple Crown to get those things from you, is there a place they could get those from you online?
Yeah, TGOE shrimp.com. We ship out every single week, Monday through Wednesday, and on Saturdays, except for the second Saturday of the month. That is our local fish club meeting. So it's kind of rough to make both happen.
Understandable. Very cool. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into the chat here because I'm already about 12 minutes behind. So that's kind of the status there, the status quo, the average. Whip's World saying hello. This is Hey James and Ed. Hey Whip, good to see you, buddy. Appreciate you being here. Mars FPV Drone says, "Good day, everyone. Didn't even have to close KG Tropical stream. It went straight to yours."
Nice.
Again, a huge thank you to John and Lisa at KG Tropicals for that send over, for the redirect, for the raid, as we would call it on other platforms. Very much appreciated. 161 people hanging out. Appreciate y'all being here. We're going to roll through this chat and get the questions and comments going. Blue Rhino Games, good to see you. Saying what's up. Just having another wonderful Thursday night, hanging out with all you awesome people. Let's see. Oh, chat jumped on me. So let's see just how far I can go up. Hopefully I didn't miss anything.
I keep thinking Triple Crown's going to be next week. So I'm
I
like,
do too.
oh man, I got to get so much stuff ready. And then I'm like, oh, I got an extra week. So I keep telling Shelby, like, I'm going to be so over prepared for this show because I think it's next week.
So Finn Wiggles has got a question. Says, do they keep any crayfish?
We have some dwarf crawfish right here behind me. They're the blue ones. And then we have some self-cloning crawfish outside that we keep in our hot tub and pool skimmer. And as they breed, they overflow into our pool through the waterfalls, and it's food for my diamondback terrapins.
Nice.
Because they can't get
That's
fiddler
awesome.
crabs. I try to substitute their diet. But I did find a good source for fiddler crabs, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to start giving them some anyways. But yeah, no, they get that and like Malaysian trumpet snails and pond snails overflow. We used to do the electric blue alien eye and some of the Clark eye and the ghost. But the demand for crawfish is just few and far between, and they ate a lot and took up a lot of space. And it was just, I don't know. I'd love to get more of the orange dwarfs. My buddy Eddie has some, so I'm just waiting for him to breed them, and then I'll get his first batch of babies. But I want to try them outside for sure.
Very cool. K Stu would like to know, what's your tank of choice for your racks?
10-gallon. We just built a rack for 110-gallon tanks, and I'm currently in the middle of building a rack for 90 10-gallon tanks. So,
yeah, that was an awesome video. I watched that. I really like the way that you designed it and the way you set it up. It looks really clean. So
And
Now, go ahead.
the next rack that I'm building is going to be like a T to that rack. So it's going to be like 190 tanks that are going to be like walled off to block my dogs from getting into the live stream area. And then this will be the third wall. The fourth wall is my TV fireplace area. So we built basically a room out of tanks inside our living room.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, now
that is that.
you get a lot of your tanks from Petco, right?
Yep. Yeah. $1
So-
per gallon sale until the end of the month. And I take out all the Petcos from here to Orlando to Tampa.
And they're Aqueons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that I've bought probably 65 tanks from that deal, and I haven't had a single one leak or blow out or anything. But I do inspect them at the store before I buy them, and I've found some that have glass that are leaning or scratched. Do you do that, or do you just go for numbers?
Oh no, I definitely inspect. I've left like a tank or two behind, even on long trips where I'm like, oh man, but no, I am picky with what I'm going to put on the racks just because, and I'm picky with everything that goes in the tanks because you can get cheap substrate and you've got to replace it within a year, or you can spend a little extra money and it's not even that much more per pound, get the better stuff and it lasts 4 to 6 years. So I want the tanks to last at least 4 to 6 years. So I won't even buy used tanks anymore because I want that brand new seal, that guarantee. And once you have one leaky tank that just causes you to wake up in the middle of the night, you never want to go back to that. So I thought one of my kids was using my bathroom because the other kid was using that one, and then the other one was like, oh, well, I followed them to mom's room and they couldn't get into my bedroom because Layla's just barely walking. So I'm like, all right, I got to get these two back to bed. And I stepped into a puddle of water and I'm going, what did you guys do? And I'm going, oh, wait, no, that's not the kids. This is my 190-gallon tank that's leaking from the living room all the way into our master bedroom. So after that, no more used tanks, 10-gallon tanks if they leak. That's preferred.
Yeah.
Also,
Well,
I only have a 1,100 square foot house. I want to fit as many tanks as I possibly can in this space. So 10 gallons is as small as I'll go without, reducing the breeding and numbers in the tanks. So,
well, you just hear so many people complain about those Aqueons blowing out, and it's like, I've never had that problem. And I mean, you're a guy who's bought a bajillion.
yeah,
Have you ever had any blowout?
And the craziest thing is, like, I have rolling chairs in some of my rooms, and I've had like some pretty big guys like lean back in the rolling chairs and like bump full tanks. And no, I've cracked a tank doing exactly that. It's just sliding, doing water changes, and then bam, hit a tank too hard, but like not blow out the seam. So no, and like some of my tanks that I had on the side of the house, one of the ones blew out from the bottom, but I was gonna cut the glass and I used it and saved it on the side of the house. So I'm using it as like a holder for my cinder blocks. And I've just been throwing the cinder blocks in the tank, waiting for the tank to break, and it hasn't. So they're a lot stronger than people make them out to be. Just the bottom blew out. I don't know why.
Well, so the key is, guys, you can buy them, just inspect them first, I think.
Yeah,
if that's yours too.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way. I always inspect mine, and I've not had any issues. I know people do have them, but it's probably the tanks that guys like us have left behind, and where other people have grabbed them up, not looked at them.
I do feel bad because I'll go and then I'll hear people from the club and they're like, oh yeah, we can't get any tanks. And I'm like, oh, I feel upset. But then at the same time, I'm talking to somebody in front of Petco for a good little while, and then I see somebody walking out with a tank, and I'm like, oh man, I'm losing them now. So it's mixed feelings there, but we have 76 of the new tanks that we need. So the next time Petco restocks, I'm hoping I'll have enough for the rack. If not, I've got 3 other Petcos that I can hit in one drive, and it's only 45-minute shot. So
nice. So Darren Schreiber says, I had 10 cherry shrimp and now I can only see 1. They are in with guppies and 3 small plecos. Who's the culprit?
If the plecos are larger than 2 inches, maybe the plecos and probably the guppies. Guppies are a lot more predatorial than a lot of people will give them out to be. And, you know, the shrimp, they kind of got the exoskeletons, but when they molt, they're super soft. And I think the fish know, because I will see fish like completely leave a shrimp alone, and then it'll molt, and then the fish knows like it can take 2 bites instead of getting it
Yeah.
whole. So some of the babies they eat whole. Some of the adults, I think they wait until they molt and then they pick them off. So the other thing is like, if you can't see the shrimp, neither can the fish. So the shrimp are probably, you know, hiding for their dear lives. So um, I always tell people not to keep them with fish if they really want a shrimp tank.
Absolutely. And I can definitely understand that. I think it's one of those different tanks for different purposes. I would say, if, like you said, if you're wanting to keep shrimp, keep them in a shrimp tank. But if you're wanting to have shrimp as an addition to the biodiversity of an aquarium you have set up, there are ways you can go about it. But most things will, are predatory and will go after them.
And if your goal is guppies and shrimp in the same tank, probably start with the shrimp first, get the shrimp breeding and going, then add the guppies. Or if your goal is just fish and shrimp, then maybe start with a smaller fish like celestial pearl danios or autocats, pygmy cories, something, you know, a little bit smaller mouth, because if it can fit in the fish's mouth, it will be food, whether it's a shrimp or another fish.
Absolutely. See, Mars FPV drone says blue, orange, and black shrimp Skittles tank and are breeding faster than convict cichlids. LOL. It's 2 foot by 12 inches by 15. Love my Skittles tank. I do like the Skittles tanks. Haley, Oddball Aquatic, she's got an awesome 50 lowboy that we got to see when we were up there, set up as a Skittles tank, which is, for anybody not familiar with the term, is a mixing of the colors. That's the name. It's like looking at a handful of Skittles with all the color variations. You just have to be aware that you're going to get some mixing of colorations and reversion back to the wild type if you do it.
It's a little work, but if you want them all and you only have one tank, that's the way to do it.
Absolutely. Matthew Naranjo says, can you please ask him if I can keep cherry shrimp in a 5-gallon? I would like to breed some, but not as a full-time breeding project.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but you're going to notice that your red cherry shrimp, instead of them getting 3 centimeters or larger, they might only get to like 2.5 centimeter max or 2 centimeters. They won't grow from babies to breeding size as quickly. Like I can get them to breed from baby to about 2 centimeters, so where they can get saddled within a month or two in a larger tank setup, especially the ponds. In a smaller tank like that, maybe 3 to 4 months. And, holding the eggs and everything will be the same. But it's also a lot trickier to keep those water parameters, stable when doing a 20% water change. If your water going in is different than the water in the tank, then they're going to fluctuate a lot more than they would in a 10-gallon. So definitely check before and after you do your water changes.
How often does a shrimp hold, like is it called a clutch, a whole bunch of eggs?
Yeah.
How often do they hold, and then like as soon as they let them go, do they start again? And
so this is why I stopped breeding chameleons and started breeding shrimp, because with shrimp, it's a baby can be born, and the day it's born, it'll take it 30 days to 3 months for it to become sexually mature. 30 days for it if it's a male. And that's fast. In a warmer temperature and stuff like that. The warmer it is, the faster they'll grow, the faster they'll breed, the quicker they'll die, though. So you want them kind of in the middle ground. Also, the warmer it is, the more susceptible they are to disease and fungus and stuff like that. But at 3 months, it'll take, as soon as a male hits a female, it starts in the saddle right behind all of the guts, and all the important stuff is like right in the head. So if you think of like riding a shrimp, you put a saddle like a horse on top of the shrimp, That's where its unfertilized eggs are. And then as soon as the male tags them and they're fertile, it'll drop into her belly. And that can be instant. And once the eggs drop and the shrimp is buried, then it'll take around 30 days for the eggs to hatch. Some as fast as 25 in warmer waters, some as slow as 45, especially with like Caridina and some of the harder shrimp to breed. But you know that's full round cycle after the eggs hatch.
Very good to know.
That's awesome.
Let's see here. Drinkwater says, Fisherman Fever, 176 people watching. What? That is awesome. And yeah, absolutely. We got 160 people hanging out. That deserves a little raise the roof right there. How about that?
You move them
Roll
over
on
this
down
time.
through here. I got a whole bunch of them I made earlier. A whole bunch of stuff in store for y'all, trying to liven things up. K-Stu with another awesome question here says, what do you do when your shrimp start dying off more than normal?
I increase water changes is the first thing I'll do. Another thing is there's a couple different vitamins you can add. I use a Brightwell vitamin or I don't know. It's a Brightwell vitamin just for shrimp. It's in their shrimp line. I haven't had to use it like ever, so I just know if I had like a bacterial infection or something like that I couldn't get under control. Usually, if there's a massive die off, there's a reason for it, and you're gonna want to figure that out first. Whether your water's off, possibly your water treatment plant decided to clean the pipes by pumping a little extra chlorine through the system. So there's certain things maybe you want to figure out what the cause is, but if there's absolutely nothing wrong and there's just die-offs, chances are you like messed with a plant or something, rearrange the substrate, and now there's a bacterial infection and it's caused your shrimp to die off maybe one or two at a time. It really depends how popularly dense the colony is. But botanicals are a good one to add. The best is going to be the Indian almond leaves. We use those for breeding dart frogs. It's the only leaf that you can add with the tadpoles to create this little tiny bacteria and microorganisms that the tadpoles will eat. And it's also got great antifungal properties to it as well. And water changes, heavy water changes is going to be your best friend.
Absolutely. Good answer there. Let's see. Noel Mann says, we are moving to Florida from Tennessee. What is the safest / easiest way to transport my fish? I have 2 large angels, a 12-inch knife fish, clown loaches, and 5-inch Jack Dempsey. Either of you gentlemen want to start with that before I get to rambling?
Well, I went from St. Louis to Tennessee. It was about a 9-hour drive because I went from really on the other side of Tennessee. And I used 5-gallon buckets. I brought about 12 angels and 3 tinfoil barbs that were probably 10 inches long. So, I mean, that's a big fish. And I just put them all in their own separate. Well, not the all angels were all together, but the tinfoils were separate. So that's what I did. It's just 5-gallon buckets. I didn't even put an air stone in them.
Yeah, and then drain the tanks down as low as you can. I don't know if the tanks are planted or anything like that, so I'll just step in for those who ever want to move like a planted tank. Paper towels are your best friends. I don't know if you guys saw the Aquascape tank at our table at Aquaticon, but we drove that from all the way from the Florida State Fair where Shelby set it up to our house, sat on the counter for a couple months, and then we drove it all the way to Tennessee and had it going for the show, drove it home, and not only did we leave all the shrimp in the tank, but everything survived. And all we did was leave, just half an inch of water to an inch, and everything else got just jam packed with wet paper towels on top of the plants. And then once you got a good like moist layer of about an inch, everything else you can even use like the paper towel roll and like other things that you bring from the show, or you got to stuff into the tank around the paper towels, so that way you pack in everything and it won't move or shift around. You'd be surprised how much of a slope we have on some of the substrate skate tanks that we move and transport, and it stays fairly right where it was at during the whole trip. So
And that was a gorgeous skate too. Super
That
cool.
was.
yeah, that was Shelby.
Oh,
Shelby did that one.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
oh yeah. Well, and for me on that, I'm right there with you. 5-gallon buckets. Yeah, large fish are transported all the time and shipped to local fish stores and things like that. So if you're somebody that's comfortable and knows how to do it, you could buy some bags, or if you've got a good relationship with your LFS, see if you get a couple bags off of them or purchase some from them. But really, for somebody that's not accustomed to bagging fish, especially for transport or shipping, I do like the 5-gallon bucket method myself, and that's what I've used. Like when Ed and I went to Florida with Daniken Aquatics, we brought fish back in 5-gallon buckets. If you're worried about the oxygen level in the water, if it's something that's going to cause you stress in the process, you could always get one of the USB air pumps. I always keep one with me in my kits, and have that just so you're, okay, I hit a rest area, I can throw that in for a couple minutes to give some extra oxygenation, but realistically they should be fine. I appreciate the question, Noel, and I hope that we were able to help you out on that one. Go through here. I know we got some more highlighted stuff. A huge thank you to all of the members and super chatters and super stickerers. I do see y'all over there, and we will get to those. I appreciate you. Be right with you. Let's see. Alice B says, can I mix Caridina and Neocaridina in a tank?
Yeah, so the best way to do it is if you have Neocaridina parameters or harder water, there are tiger shrimp. So Andrine tigers are going to be your best option. Right behind them are super tigers. But you can keep some of the harder tigers, even like orange eye blue tigers or the black tigers with the orange eyes as well. They're going to breed a little bit slower, grow a little bit slower. The Neos might outcompete them a little bit for food sources and stuff like that, but it is doable. And then at the exact same time, the Neocaridina are very hardy, and most of the people don't realize this, but when they're bred overseas, they breed them in very low pH. So they can take a variety of different parameters themselves, just they're known as the hard water shrimp. So not a lot of people keep them together, but you can keep Neos with the B shrimp and stuff like that, but go for the B parameters because the Bs just don't handle the neutral pH very well at all.
That's good to know. So let's see. We've got a question from Jeff Hester here. And I just do want to mention, I try and catch all the questions that I can when I'm scrolling through the chat. But if I missed your question and you didn't put an @ and then Fish Room Fever in there, that's probably why, because it doesn't highlight on my screen. So it's just a crapshoot as to whether or not I see it without that in there. But Jeff Hester says, guys, we've got angelfish and prograramis with cories and neons. Would shrimp be out of the question?
I think you'd be feeding some really expensive feeders. I mean, not really expensive, but you'd be better off just throwing in ghost shrimp or something like that. The angels are such predatory fish alone, and then everything else is just adding on to it.
Absolutely. So I will say, while I completely agree with that, it I've made it work in the past, but only in extremely heavily planted tanks, only with a good large population. And I only do it with cherry shrimp because cherry shrimp tend to be the cheapest. And having them in so many different tanks, they breed out like crazy. So I've always got extra shrimp, if you will. But yeah, angelfish definitely are, they're not angels, contrary to popular belief and what their name might imply.
If you want to try it though, turn off the lights and add the shrimp at nighttime with a heavily planted tank. That way, they at least have a chance to get into their hiding spots and establish before. If you do it right during the day, those fish are going to think you're purposely feeding them, and that's new food for the tank.
Absolutely, that's a very good point. But yeah, like you said, there definitely be prepared to be feeding some shrimp to your fish if you try it. But you can make it work. It's just not going to. You're not going to see nearly as many of them because as we discussed previously. If you're seeing them, the fish are seeing them, and the shrimp that are still around are probably going to learn they don't want to be out in the open.
I always think that like the Asian fish are just like horrible predators, or like just can't see worth a dang, because all of our native fish or shrimp are the ghost shrimp, and they're really hard to see. So it makes sense that they're all over the rivers. So all these colorful shrimp that they have, I just think the fish are just blind or really bad predators.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to jump over here to my other screen real quick so I could grab some of these membership milestone super chats and the other super chats and stickers before I get too far behind there. I'm going to get back to right there. Got the awesome Lilibet Tavares with that $3 super sticker that says, "How's it going?" It is going great. I appreciate you being here as always, Lilibet. Thank you so much for the support and for hanging out with us this Thursday night. Lady Diane, using her membership milestone super chat, says, "Yay, James, Ed, and Grant. Woo!" Absolutely. I was really happy to get Grant on here tonight to talk about shrimp. It's always fun hanging out and talking to him, and it's great to bring that time acquiring new knowledge to the Tank Show, which is what we're here for.
I got a card from Grant, and I never opened it because I pretty much know what it is. But I was saving it for something else, but I thought I'd open it right here, and then he could tell us about it.
Absolutely.
If you want.
Nope,
oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Well, this is a super cool sticker. And how does somebody get a super cool sticker like that?
So that's our members only stickers. So if you're a supporter of our YouTube channel over at the Garden of Eder, Shelby will handwrite a little letter and send you guys a sticker, and it comes with a 10% off code to our website. So don't show people the personal letter, but
it would have sucked if it all expired, and it was good for a week, and I waited too. That's awesome, though. That's super cool.
Absolutely, that is neat.
And
I'm going to grab a couple. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Some stickers also here for the fish room. Once I get back in the fish room, get the Ethernet working, so we can have live streams from there again.
Those are the OG stickers. That's the old logo.
That's awesome. Now, is Eder your last name?
Yeah.
Does anybody ever call you Eder?
Quite a bit, yeah. It's
just since my name's Ed, I just had to know. It wouldn't make me mad, but with you, it probably does.
No, it's so common. I grew up with it. Like every time you get a substitute teacher, they're gonna read your name wrong. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Principal read it wrong every single year at graduation. That's just how it is.
Mine was the same, so I understand. Except mine's always something different. Okay,
it's hard German. It's actually Eder, but like I don't want to read it like that. Nobody does it like that. None of my family does it like that. So,
gotcha. Scuba Stevo's Aquatics using his membership milestone super chat. Stupor chat? What's a stupor chat? Says Grant is the shrimp king with a little crown emoji there. Absolutely, Grant is an awesome guy, very knowledgeable and also quality shrimp. So I had to bring him on and talk to him.
James, did you know that Grant's shrimp almost made it to space, and maybe someday they will?
Oh, nice.
You want to explain it?
They were in the process. Well, Ed, just give me a second, Ed. Calm down here. Calm down. Let me get through these super chats real quick.
Gotcha.
And yeah, definitely. I love you, Ed. You're my buddy. Let's see. Pegasus Arena. I lost what I was doing here. Pegasus Arena. Good to see you. Using that membership milestone super chat. Says, I hope you're healing well, Ed, my friend, with a big heart emoji.
Oh, thank you.
We're glad you're on the mend, buddy.
Tomorrow will be the first Friday I don't have to go to the hospital in months. It's
that's
wonderful.
Great news.
Yeah. So
that is
happy. I have to go
Paul
next Thursday.
Oh, sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope. I want to hear about Paul Sateri.
Paul Sotero using his membership milestone super chat says, I've been on the 13-month membership for at least 7 months. It's that new YouTube math we've heard about. Yeah, for whatever reason, it wants to show the incorrect time frame to you all before you post your membership milestone super chat. But it's showing me right there. It's been 18 months, Paul, and it is very much appreciated. Not only a member, but also one of the awesome moderators on the channel. We appreciate you and all the moderators for all the hard work that you do for free every single week. We're going to jump back into the chat here in just a second. First, we're going to hear about those shrimp going to space. But even before that, I'm going to grab a couple more things because I know these members and super chatters have been waiting patiently. And I do appreciate you. Xanadu, good to see you. Been a member for 20 months. You sent a membership milestone super chat. Says, what if Paul Sotero said, hit the like, folks. Do us a favor. If you're hanging out, we've got 140 people still watching. If you're getting any value out of this through either education or entertainment, hopefully a little bit of both, smash that like button. We appreciate you. And thank you, Xanadu, for being one of those awesome members. Lady Diane with a $10 super chat says, thanks for featuring Grant tonight, James Ed. Great content with the heart emoji. Lady Diane, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for the love and support. And that $10 super chat, very much appreciated. Hippie John, the Fisherman, became a new member. All right,
Hippie.
I lost my.
Hippie
There's
John.
my dance. I about did the face palm. We don't want that. We want the dance. We got a new member here. Hippie John, the Fisherman. Welcome to the Fisherman Fever family. I hope you enjoy all the fun little membership emojis and stuff in the chat like most people do. And of course, there's behind the scenes videos and things. There's a video right now back there for the members only, which is next week's post. But you all get a sneak peek if you're a member. So I hope you enjoy that. And thanks for joining the family, my friend. And then, of course, we got the awesome Finn Wiggles. Words are hard. I've forgotten how to talk.
That's why I got Shelby.
$5 super sticker. Yeah. With the little Bravo Fox. So thank you so much for that, Finn Wiggles. As always, appreciate your support. Finn's a member as well, too. So thank you. Doubly so and triply so because you're hanging out with us. So we appreciate you. Now, back over to Ed, who was asking about shrimp going to space.
Oh, yeah. Like, how did that all even happen?
So there's this Polish guy made a post on one of the shrimp groups asking if anybody near Arizona had any shrimp that they could send up in a rocket. And I said, I'm not near Arizona, but I could ship shrimp and I'm all for it. Like, you just let me know how many you need, what you need, I'll get it. And they needed 40 adult shrimp, not pregnant. And at this time of the year for Neos, that was quite a difficult task. Luckily, I have a 500-gallon green jade tub outside that I cleared out completely so I could put my turtles in it. And I moved all of the shrimp from outside into a 55-gallon tank. So I just went through and I grabbed all the ugly ones. They're all green jades. And I went ahead, shipped them off to Arizona overnight. They got the shrimp. And so the purpose for the shrimp was 2 reasons. One was they wanted a miniature model of the larger prawns for feeder to eat in a hydroponic system up in space. Whether it's the moon, Mars is kind of going to be difficult. I can talk about that later. But the other one was pollinators. So they're sending up shrimp and honeybees as well for pollinating up top. But I guess the shrimp were like underwater pollinators for algae control as well. But I guess like they're moving around biofilms and bacterias and stuff like that. So they needed something. They said that they couldn't just do a hydroponic system in space with fertilizer and seed, that they needed more than that to make a complete ecosystem to live up there. So we sent them the shrimp. They got the shrimp. The first day, I think they had weather issues. The second day, they had engine failure. The third day, they couldn't get clearance or insurance. So they weren't able to send them up in the rocket. However, the G-force that they would go through in the rocket ride would cause the shrimp to have strokes or mini heart attacks and die. And if they didn't die, they would severely damage their reproductive organs. So they had to use like clove oil to put the shrimp to sleep through the ride, and then on the other side they'd wake them up and then been able to breed them. So they were able to use my shrimp to put them to sleep a couple times, bring them back to life. They shipped them back to me. I've got them in a tank. I'm going to see if they
Oh, that's
breed
awesome.
after all that process and stuff like that. First attempt was not successful. They sent me like a piece of the rocket. It's like a little microchip. And then a couple badges and some footage and pictures and all that stuff. But hopefully this isn't the end of Neocaridinus going into space. I've kind of like dove off the deep end and kind of geeked out and figured out like how far into this we can go. But like doing this on Mars is going to be relatively difficult because of the atmospheric differences. The boiling point of water is way lower than it is on Earth, and the freezing point is way higher. So there's only a very small window of temperature where you can keep the water before it just evaporates because it boils so fast or freezes shut. And you
Is
don't
it
want
because it's
either
either
one of
too
those
hot or too
things
cold?
happens. What's that?
Is it because it's either too hot or too cold there?
It's just because our window for freezing is 32 to 275. I freaking can't remember what it is right now. But like up there, it's such a really small gap. I only remember what it is Celsius. I never use Fahrenheit anymore. But yeah, so like up there, it's probably like 30 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius, and anything else is vapor or solid. I don't know what it is exactly, but because of the atmosphere, it's a very small gap before it just goes. Yeah.
Like, that whole process is just mind blowing. It's very cool. I'm going to try and get through some more questions here. I do want to say we just lost about 10 minutes worth of chat because the chat jumped on me. So the furthest back I can go is 9:59 p.m. Eastern time. If you messaged before that, but after what I've read, I can't get back to it, and I do apologize. Wee Chong says I went for aquascaping course and got home a 1-foot tank. The tank has white fungus on it. How to solve it? I'm going to assume went for aquascaping course and got home a 1 feet tank have white fungus on it. How to solve it? I would think, and I'll let you gentlemen interject here, but I would think with it being a tank used for aquascaping, it's probably that typical fungus that we see with driftwood, any wood hardscape that usually happens when you new wood into water that hasn't been treated, or sometimes even if it has been treated, you still get that fungus. That would be my guess. And if that is the case, I personally tend to not even mess with it. I let it take its course usually. If it's a lot of it or a big piece, like I've got a 2.5 foot piece of driftwood I'm dealing with right now, I'll probably pull it out of the tank, scrub it down, and put it back in and see how much it funguses the next go round. But it's not something, if that is, what we're talking about here, it's not something to panic about, to freak out about. I know a lot of people, when they see that hardwood driftwood fungus for the first time, they're like, oh my God, what's growing in my tank? Is my water going bad? That type of stuff. But that's my 2 cents. What about you, gentlemen?
So it's actually biofilm. It's not a fungus. It's the main food source for your shrimp. Just it's such readily clumped up in one area that you're able to see it. Most of the time, it's like invisible to the naked eye. But with especially like Mapani wood, like that's the worst. It's just such a thick clump of just like ghostly mass that builds up around it, and it is shrimp heaven right there. So add in some shrimps, watch them go to town on it. But in a nice mature tank, that stuff was not going to last very long. It'll eventually get eaten up by the little tiny microorganisms and bacterias and stuff like that. So it's nothing to worry about. But with new aquascape tanks, stay on top of your water changes. That's going to be your best friends. Don't try and scrape the biofilm off. It's just going to get it to grow back faster. Just increase your water changes, get the bioorganisms and organics out of the water column, and that'll be your best bet to get rid of it if you don't want it.
Yeah. Anything to add on that one, Ed, before I jump to the next one here?
Nope, I wouldn't be able to make it sound any cooler.
Alrighty. Let's see. K Stu says, how do you stay prepared for when the city decides to mess with the water? You gentlemen want me to lead off, or either of you got something? Ed, do you want to start there since you didn't get input on the last one?
It was, how do you, wait, say it again.
How do you stay prepared for when the city decides to mess with the water? So when they do flushes and things like that.
Well, when I do water changes, I like to check my water first. Basically, first thing to do is make sure it's clear. When they do the water changes, sometimes there's a lot of extra air bubbles. Sometimes it's really cloudy. And if that's the case, just say, we'll do it on another day. And then also make sure you get all the water out of your water heater and out of everything in your system. So flush your whole system too. Because I had that happen to me a couple times in Missouri and haven't had it here. So I've been pretty lucky.
I just go through and I check with a TDS pen before I use my water changes. So with my RO unit, I probably don't even have to worry about that. But with my shrimp outside and some of the fish and shrimp inside with the Neos, I just fill the trash can up a little bit of the way. I have trash cans on rolling wheels, the brute ones, and I got like 4 of them. It's a little army that we use to fill up all the tanks in the house. But I'll fill it up like a fourth of the way and then just hit it with a TDS pen and make sure it's my TDS out of the tap water is usually within 170 and 182. So as long as it's within that range, I just go for it. If it's out of that range, I'll probably just, like Ed said, just skip it. Wait for it to go back down.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things is that if you're keeping a well-maintained tank and you're not pushing till the very end of when you need to do a water change, you're fine to skip it. The biggest thing that I have to deal with where I'm at is typically when there's a change or when they're messing with the water is excess chlorine or chloramine. And that's typically a common thing when they do flushes, or maybe they've got to get it, quote unquote, up to par for a government inspection. And typically, I know myself and a lot of people I talk to, you can smell the difference in the water. You can smell, that additional chlorine or chloramine in the water. You can smell something's off. It's kind of like your fish tanks. When you've been doing it a while, you look at them and you can tell when something's off, even without throwing a test strip in there, and then try and figure it out. Then just skip it. Running down through here, Crypt Keeper Aquatics says, let's see, Fisherman Fever, Garden of Eder, how long between each Caridina adult molt? Is there a specific time frame that they're able to molt again? And does carrying berries alter that time frame?
So generally speaking, it's about once a month. But just like reptiles, shrimp will never stop growing. So if you have a really old shrimp, and I've had shrimp that got like an inch and a half orange eye black tigers that went, 2 of them traveled with me 3 times to Chicago, twice to New Jersey, once to Dallas, made it to the first Orlando Aquashella and competed. And that was over 5.5 years. Wow. So those shrimp, when they passed away, were probably like 6.5, almost 7 years old. And because of how big they were, they would still molt, but not every month. They were probably molting like once every 3-4 months at that. So it'll definitely slow down the more they mature because they're not growing nearly as fast. Babies can molt every single day as newborns, and then at a week old, they'll start, once a week, and then once a month as juveniles is about average.
As a competitor in the shrimp competitions, if your shrimp molts right beforehand, do you know when they're about to molt, or does it just ruin your show if they molt one
No.
of the molts?
No, it shouldn't make too much of a difference. There's certain shrimp where it'll make a difference, and the thing is whether it molts or not, it can do it anyways. So like the blue bolts, for instance, they're so moody. I don't even like to sell extremes anymore because I'll personally take some of the blue bolts out that have any white to them at all and move them over to another tank, and then every single shrimp in the tank will be solid jet blue. And then the next week, the other ones that I moved over are the ones that are all solid jet blue, and now I've got some white ones in the colony again. So they're so moody, they're so temperamental. Sometimes it's because of molting, sometimes it's because they didn't get enough food out of that feeding, or they didn't get to tag that female, or she's in the middle of her buried cycle. There's just so many different things that can change the pigments to certain shrimp that with other shrimp like orange-eyed red devil, a molt is not going to make an issue. Can I talk about the shrimp contest for a second?
Please do.
So it is in Dallas. It is the 7th and 8th of August, so we're like 3 weeks away. It is an American shrimp breeding contest. Basically, you enter a group of shrimp, 3 to 5 shrimp, no more, no less. You don't necessarily want to send in 3 shrimp because if one dies, then you're disqualified. So send in your 5, your biggest, your best coloration that all look the same, and you'll do really well. It is like a beginner's contest, so people would be really surprised how well they did in place. Maybe not in like the hybrid category and the morph category. That is kind of like dominated by more of the higher, more expensive shrimps, but the crystals and stuff like that, it's almost always like 2 or 3 people that are not really big breeders that end up winning those categories. So there's Neocaridina category, crystals, Taiwan bees, tigers, hybrids, and then orange-eyed morphs. It's only $25 to enter, and it gets you into Aquashella for both days and VIP access. So
that's awesome.
And it's a great thing, like I mentioned before, getting into the hobby. It's got a lot of color and stuff like that. You'd be surprised how many of the saltwater people come over from the corals and then think, oh, look at these shrimp that I'm going to be able to throw in my saltwater tank. And I'm like, no. They're freshwater. And they're like, oh, but like, don't you have to set up a really expensive da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, no, see, like for a fraction of the price, I can still get you color in the tank and you're doing a fraction of the work. So every show, I end up getting a couple of the people. Like I got a buddy in the saltwater section. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm, reeling in your customers one show after another when they see these display tanks, because it's like, look how many colors there are at all these shows. And Aquashella gives us the show, the stage to display everything. So it's really cool. It's really nice. You can ship your shrimp in. First places are going to get a little prize from the sponsors, JBJ and Shrimp King, and first place is $250. So you never know. You could get lucky, and it's great recognition, especially if you're a shrimp seller. Anytime I enter shrimp in a contest and they place, those shrimp sell out almost constantly for that year.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to
Absolutely.
do it so bad, and things just keep happening, so I never get to. But I want to.
No pressure. You've got until you basically leave for Aquashella to sign up. I think the deadline is the 3rd or the 5th or something like that. It's the Wednesday before that weekend. So whatever date that is, as long as I know how many tanks I need to set up on Thursday, we can get you in.
I'm going to check to see how many, if I've got 5 big enough blue dreams to bring. Because that's the one big shrimp tank that has really good looking shrimp in my room that I know that I could get them all to look the same.
Well, James, if you're going, man, you should bring some of those red cherries. You got red cherries in every tank. First place in Orlando was some red cherries just bred in a fish tank. The guy wasn't even trying to breed. And I was like, dude, those are some really nice red cherries you got in this video. You should enter them in the show. He did. Nice. Sure enough, he won. So
that is awesome.
How about wild ones like that are kind of brown and ugly?
Nope, no wild.
I got a whole
shrimp
lot of
allowed in
them.
the contest.
I don't like to do any calling, Grant. When it comes to my shrimp, I just like to let them.
But you
I
got
like
blue.
looking at different colors.
Yeah.
That's like you were just talking about the blue bolts. I think it's cool to have lots of different colored blue bolts. You know,
Well, the cool thing about Taiwan bees is you can have blue bolts, shadow pandas, shadow mazuras, black King Kongs, red King Kongs, red bolts, all in the same tank, and they're all going to interbreed, and they won't produce anything other than what I just announced. So you can get a wide mix, and then you can even add in crystal shrimp, and you'll get some Michelings. And all a Micheling is a crystal shrimp that has the Taiwan bee gene in it. So you can keep all of those shrimp together in a nice little party tank, but you got to have the RO water, you got to have the aqua soil, and GH only minerals. But just as easy to keep as long as you're doing those three things.
I have the RO water. You'll have to let me know what type of soil, but maybe I'll do that for the flugel tank that I have, my mega flugel tank. Maybe I'll do something like that.
Yeah, the Fluval stratum substrate is one of the ones that a lot of people say only works for 6 months to a year. We did the Fluval contest in Orlando, and they give you free substrate. So I didn't use it for the scape, and we got to bring it home. I set tanks up with it, and I was using those tanks to clean out moss for the show, and babies were left in behind in the tank, and it's the Fluval substrate, and I got already babies from those babies. So it's not a junk substrate right off the rip, but I'm going to figure out, I'm giving it a fair test and see how long I can really get it to last, because a lot of times it might be user error, but it's like 9 out of 10 times if somebody has a pH issue, they're using that or the Aqua Vitro substrate.
Nice. And I like how you say Fluval. Right. I do the flugel just for only my tank is the flugel.
So there's a commercial, and the lady is like Fluval, and I'm like, oh man, is that how you say it? And I know like it was making some people mad in my stream, so I was like, I'm just gonna say it from now on.
I thought that was funny. Yeah. James, do I need to leave to go to my channel?
Well, I was going to ask. I was also going to blame it on you, but we're running into your time frame.
I've got 2 minutes.
Okay, do you care if we rapid fire off a few more questions and then I grab these super chats before we wrap things up?
Sure. Should I go over there though? Since we're gonna try to do the morph thing or whatever that was. It won't called.
Affect it. Nah, you can leave it. You can get out of here if you want to, Ed, but you're welcome to stay. It won't have any effect on it.
Okay, cool.
All right, so we're gonna do rapid fire real quick here. So, Misfits Reptiles and Aquatics was asking you. Talking about saltwater, have you ever considered saltwater shrimp?
I had a sexy shrimp tank for a little bit. Shelby wanted upside down jellyfish, and we couldn't get them after we set up the tank, so I ended up taking it over. I had them for a while, but it was a nano. Probably wasn't the best way to go. It was like a 5-gallon tank. Something I'd like to try again in the future.
Very, very cool. All right, let's see. I'm not grabbing some of the silly comments from the mods. I love you guys, and I appreciate you. We're going to skip those. Introduce saying, I love the pop-up GIFs. GIFs? What? Huh? What? I don't know.
Say something offensive.
Thank you very much there.
Great.
Yeah, something offensive.
What? Wait, what?
Say something offensive. It was so earlier today. You said something about dead shrimp, and he did that. I love it.
All right. Hey, Deb Paul D, good to see you. Appreciate you being here. Also, the chat did jump, so that was not where I left off at, but I'm grabbing what's available really quick. Blue Rhino Games wants to know what's the most wanted breed and color of shrimp that most stores don't have.
The green emeralds. They're a really hard one to keep in stock, and I rarely ever see anyone with them.
I have a tank of them. They're not. Yeah. It's not super big though. I don't know why I got 9 of those when I got 9 of the Blue Dreams, but the emeralds just never took off. The greens.
I've lost the question now, but they're wanting to know just a little bit of information about the food that you keep on your website or that you sell on your website.
So the soy ahoy is Shelby's shrimp food. It's just a Snowflake. It's soybean husks. It's 50 grams. It's our cheaper food option. It's the one I recommend for vacation feeding. If you have to go away for a couple days, or if I'm feeling lazy and I want to, not feed for a couple days of the week, I'll throw Snowflake in the tank, and I know as long as there's a couple pieces in that tank, I don't have to feed for a while. And then the Shrimp Envy Foods, they're from the Bloomfields over in Oregon. Great people. I always say the shrimp hobby is so big. There's so much importing going on that is doing so much damage to the hobby. I wish there was somebody like the Bloomfields in every state that was breeding their own shrimp, working on their own shrimp products and stuff like that. So they are shrimp breeders. They're dedicated to the hobby. They made their own line of shrimp food. We tested it here, obviously, in several tanks, and it ended up being part of my rotation. And we just recently got our Florida resale license, and I was like, you know what? I want to support somebody local, not local, but local to the United States, and somebody in the hobby and somebody that I really want to support. So the Shrimp Envy food line is the first product that we carry on our site, and it's a great one that, I can put my name behind and not worry about my reputation.
That's awesome. Fenwiggles wants to know if there is a way to keep dwarf blue crayfish blue. Says my orange stays bright, but my blue fades.
So lower pH, and Chris Lukop told me feed them carrots. I didn't get to try this yet, but if the shrimp king himself, the crayfish king himself says it, then it's got to be right. So try carrots. Let me know. I'm very curious.
All right, last one I'm going to grab here. Then I'm going to say some thank yous, and we're going to head on over to Chattanooga Ed's channel. Whips World wants to know, how much does food really matter? I assume it's like the fish foods where there are different qualities of varying degrees.
So, like earlier, me and Ed were talking about the minerals, adding the mineral blocks and stuff like that. As long as you have a good source of food and a good rotation and doing your water changes, you don't have to add in all this extra stuff. I like to keep things super, super basic, stick to the bare necessities. You don't need all the botanicals and all that other stuff. Stay away from the cholla wood. It's just a mold bomb waiting to happen. But if you stick to just the basics, then you're going to have a really good shrimp tank. But part of the basics is a good rotation of shrimp food, because nobody wants to just eat chicken and rice every single day. You want to kind of mix it up, throw some veggies in there, but make sure they get their protein. And yeah.
Awesome. Just a couple of things here real quick as we wrap up. Noel Mann became a new member. Welcome to the Fish Room Fever family. We appreciate you. And like I said, there's behind the scenes content you can check out in the members only section. Everybody seems to love the emotes in the chat, so I hope you enjoy those. And thank you again. Mississippi Hippie Fishies rejoined, judging by the badge color there. Welcome back, Mississippi Hippie Fishies. Appreciate you coming back to the Fish Room Fever family. And Jay Oliver's Guppies in Aquatics using that membership milestone super chat. Been a member for 21 months. Says, can't wait to see you three in a couple of weeks. Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to the Triple Crown and then Aquashella right after that. For those of you that don't know, Jay Oliver's did an awesome video with some really beautiful guppies just the other day.
Gorgeous.
So I would encourage you. Yeah, gorgeous. They're gorgeous. I would give them 2 thumbs up.
Oh, we might see Grant on your stream in 2 weeks live.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know. I want to say a huge thank you, Grant, for being here tonight, hanging out with us, answering questions, and talking to us about shrimp. Anything in closing that you would like to share or say to the group?
No, man, I really enjoy hanging out with you guys, and I know I get to see you twice in the upcoming weeks, but it's cool to kind of chat and hang out online. So I really enjoy it, and do it again sometime.
Awesome. Absolutely. We appreciate you. Ed, any closing thoughts?
Nope. Thanks, right. Grant. You're awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Grant. And Grant, also thank you for being part of the Fish Room Fever family of channels. This guy's link is in the description for his YouTube channel, and we'll make sure we get his store link in there as well. For those of you that are regulars here, you already know what's coming. A huge thank you to all the moderators, members, lurkers, listeners, super chatters, contributors, questioners, commentators, and of course the replay crew. Love you guys. We appreciate you. Until next time, keep your fish healthy, keep yourselves healthy. Don't be afraid to catch yourself a little fish room fever. Take care, everybody.